Hey, what's up everybody? Today I'm talking about Topaz Photo AI. Now about a year ago, I did a similar video where I reviewed it and it had only been out for a couple months at that point in time. And I checked it out as it compares to what I do with sports photography. And at that time, I had some positives and a lot of negatives about Topaz Photo AI. Now, since then, some of you have gotten on my case about it, saying, hey, it needs to be revisited. It's so much better. I'm being biased against it in some way, shape, or form. Well, okay, fine. You talked me into it. I'm going to do a review. So 1 year of using Photo AI as a sports photographer. Let's get going. All right, so now I've been using Topaz Photo AI for about a year now. If you watched my last video, this one right here, I talked about how Topaz's legacy software, denoise, gigapixel, sharpen are pretty much dead in the water. Topaz is no longer upgrading them in any way, shape, or form. You're wasting your money if you buy subscriptions to those three products. They've put in all their efforts into Photo AI. Photo AI gets updated regularly. It seems like every time I open it, which is at least once a week, there's a new update to it. Is it better than it was a year ago when I first was using it? Yes, it is much better. However, it is not perfect. So what I'm going to do right now is walk you through how I use Topaz Photo AI. I'm going to show you some positives and some negatives. And if stick with me to end, I'll actually walk through how I normally do my flow through Adobe Lightroom Classic and Photo AI, which ones I use for which, and how to best employ, at least in my opinion. Let's get going. This first image right here is from a recent basketball game, Nikon Z9, thousandths of a second, f2.8. Most of these are ISO 8000. You see I've already done some cropping and I've done some basic editing. I want to zoom in right on his face, which is what I always do when I edit a photo, is take it down, is the face sharp? So his uniform is very sharp, but his face is slightly out of the plane of focus. Not bad, pretty sharp still, but it's slightly out. As you can see in Lightroom, I have turned off all noise reduction. Lightroom naturally, as part of its program, wants to add a little noise reduction. You have to manually turn that off. Now let's do it the basic way with Lightroom denoise and see what it does. You right click it up in the main photo right here, click enhance. At higher ISOs, I like to use a 60 up here and hit enhance and let us do its thing. It's going to take a few seconds. Okay, so the face came in pretty darn good. I do have a little bit of sharpening on this already, but pretty darn good. It's not bad at all. It's, it has that slightly painterly look that most noise reduction programs have at high ISOs, but pretty darn good. Now let's see what Photo AI does to this same image. So I'm going to remove that photo and I'm going to take this. I'm going to do this one of two different ways. Topaz says you should take the raw image straight into Photo AI and let us do this thing as a raw file. The other option you have is to have Lightroom send it over as a TIFF file. It seems to handle the images differently. Topaz suggests you do it as a raw file. Let's try that first and see what happens. Now, to send it over as a raw file, you go up here to File, come down here to Plugin Extras, find Topaz Photo AI, click on it, and it's going to send it over as a raw file. Now, when it does that, it removes all your editing. It takes over the entire file. There's no editing from Lightroom in it. All right, so you go up here to the autopilot, image loaded, does its thing. Image is back to being kind of a gray color because, again, it was just the raw file. All right, so it's generated a preview. It removed noise, sharpened subject, what it thought was the subject, and recovered faces. So did it do a good job on my subject's face? Yeah, I think it did a good job on my subject's face. It also did some other things. So let's start with removing noise. The AI model it used was raw normal. But if you see, because it did this face recovery business, it stopped. There's like a line right here. And that doesn't look particularly good. There's some weird sharpening going on in his body, in his skin. So we might have to deal with that as far as sharpening the subject. But already I'm not really liking what it did as far as the noise reduction. So I'm going to try raw strong, see if that makes it any better. I have found at high ISOs, the raw strong actually works better. So slightly better, still overly sharpened, unfortunately. So let's play with that a little bit. So let's leave it on the raw strong for now. Let's go to sharpening subject. Now, what you can do is actually edit the subject. And if we bounce out to full size, you can see that Photo AI decided all these folks were the subject, not just my main subject, which, okay, I get that. You can actually subtract people from your subjects. So you can see under here, you can have a brush type. You can do super pixel brush, which is their old style way of doing it, which looks like a bunch of pixels actually. And then this object selection brush, which kind of sort of works. And basically what you do is you just draw a line through areas and it thinks about it. And it might actually hit the areas you want or the subject you want. As you see, it's starting to come in, but it's not perfect. And you end up missing parts. It tries, but it's not quite there. So this person was pretty much removed. I don't even know what it's doing right now. This person was removed. This one, not so much. So what I can go back with is like a regular brush and clean up the rest of this. But you know, when I take this back, I'm not really concerned about all those other people. I was just concerned about this individual right here to my main subjects left. So we hit apply on that. Okay, great. So it's not going to sharpen those folks. Great. I didn't need it. But let's go back to our main subject. As you recall, weird lines from the, I believe from the sharpening. Yeah. So there are all these bunch of weird lines. So maybe we just turn that off. See what happens. So it's significantly improved. It just over sharpened him completely. So now let's talk about recovering of faces. So if you look up here, it actually tried to recover everybody's faces. What you could do is you could select faces. We've got this face right here. It also tried to correct this face right here. So let's go up here and see what it did to these faces. All right, well, it corrected it and actually did a pretty good job actually, but the subject, this person's body is completely out of focus. Doesn't make any sense to actually have it corrected. Same thing down here, this guy, did okay. Not perfect, but it did okay. Again, he's really out of focus. So why would we want their faces corrected? So what you can do is go in here, select faces, and you can actually turn off all the faces that it's identified, hit apply, and then go. So it found 5 faces. It's only doing this person right here. I think we've done enough to fix this photo and we can now take it back. So let's take it back to a Lightroom. Here we are, came back. So here's another little problem I see with Topaz Photo AI. If you look carefully in his face, you can see like this, like kind of a leopard pattern down here, which is really annoying. And it seems to only happen in faces. I don't normally see it in other body parts, but it really shows up in faces. And in fact, in a later example, you'll see it even worse than this. And it mostly seems to happen when you take a raw file over. All right, so let's change this up a little bit. Let's take it over as a TIFF file and see what happens. So take it over there as a TIFF file rather than a raw file. You do it a little differently. You right click on the photo, go up here to edit in, scroll down to Topaz Photo AI, click on that. And it says edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments and take it on over there. Because I already cropped it, all those other potential subjects are now out of the photo. It's only going to do this vertical now. So I'm not going to go through this whole process. I just want to point out some differences real quick. I think I did a much poorer job in this case with his face. Very strange things. It still did the whole recover the face thing. Oh, here's the funny part. It didn't even select his face. It selected the other 2 people's faces to correct. Maybe it thought it didn't need to fix it because it was good enough. I don't know, but it's very different than what it did with the raw file. So that leopard pattern you saw before is not as prominent when you do it in this method. As far as the removing noise, I have found that at higher ISOs, going to the extreme actually looks better. Although sometimes I want to turn it down a little bit. So not bad, but as you can see, there's a difference between when you take it over as a raw and take it over as a TIFF. But in the end, I kind of prefer the original Lightroom noise reduction methodology, and I didn't have to go through all this process. So I think this just shows that if your image is already like nice and tack sharp in Lightroom, don't take it to Photo AI. It's fine. Just leave it alone. Use the denoise from Lightroom and you'll be fine. another thing I want to show you is something that Topaz Photo AI does that's kind of annoying. And another reason you just can't send photos in there and let it do its thing. You have to babysit Topaz Photo AI. So here we have an image of this player right here, pretty sharp, not tack sharp in the face, but fairly sharp. Let's take it over to Photo AI and see what it does with it. And I'm going to use the right-click edit in option where it sends it over as a TIFF file. So the first thing I want to look at here is faces. It found 9 faces in this image. Of course, there's a lot of people in the background, right? So you could select the faces. So let's talk about selecting faces. So it gives you all sorts of options, but the funny thing is the 2 people who probably could use some help are our main subject with the ball, this player off to the right who's coming in, who's fairly in focus. But for some reason, you see way off to the left over here, this individual was picked. Let's see what it does with that individual. Wow, that's kind of weird. Why it picks these people way in the background who are super out of focus, I don't know. But I don't know if the individual actually looked like that or not, but here we are. So yes, if you don't watch it, it'll give you these weird faces in the background. Let's fix that. We'll turn her off. And because this individual is not my main subject, I'm going to take him out and we'll just talk about our main subject. His face came in pretty good. Now let me show you another little issue that I have with Topaz Photo AI. If you can see in the background here, this wall, which is painted like this very dark maroon color, has all these streaks patterns. It looks like some sort of modern art thing, and it looks horrible, right? And I have found that when you do the remove noise, no matter how grainy the image is, it never wants to go to the extreme for some reason. But I have found if you actually go to the extreme, it will clean up those background areas. So once again, you have to baby Topaz Photo AI. You can't trust what it's telling you. So strong, horrible, horrible look, extreme, better. Now you can play with the extreme and the strength of it and whatnot, but I found that model works so much better with high ISO images, whether it was raw or in this case, the TIFF files. So now that I've made all these different corrections, it's usable, but man, it was really looking there rough for a while there when I was just solely relying on the AI. Now in this last demonstration, I want to go back to where I talked about that kind of leopard look. I want to show you a more significant example of it. Okay, so here we have, it's already been cropped and I just wanted a more nice tighter shot of this individual. I tell you his face is slightly out of focus. So what can we do about that? All right, so I'm gonna go over here to File, plug in Extras, process with Topaz Photo AI, and see what it does. So the interesting thing, it didn't do the recover faces thing, it's just trying to sharpen it up. Okay, so we got the remove noise. I'm gonna try it in the raw strong to see how that works. That looks slightly better. So if we go back to normal, it's got all these different lines in it, which I don't like at all. Does not look good. It's got all sorts of patterns. I found it just really works better with the strong when you're using raw and the extreme when you're using the TIFF. And again, this is for very high ISO images. So let's go to raw strong. Okay, I think that looks better. Sharpening the subject, we only had the small subject, so it did okay there. The question is, did it over sharpen? And I'm kind of looking through his entire body. It looks okay. But for some reason it didn't do the whole recover face. So I guess I could go with this, but let's see if I add the recover face, see what happens. Actually, I think it improved it. I think it looks better now on the recover face than when it just sharpened it. But if you look at this carefully, you can start to see that kind of that leopard pattern, stippling pattern on his face. And again, it's only on his face. It's not anywhere else on his body. So let's take it back to Lightroom. And you can actually see it better when I do a few adjustments on it. Okay, so this is the image that just came back from Topaz Photo AI. It is a GNG file, and you could definitely see that pattern on his face, which to me is unacceptable. What am I going to do with this? I guess you could, mask this and maybe reduce clarity and try to clean that up, but it's useless. I can't really use this, and I don't want to use this. As you can see, this is a serious flaw with Topaz Photo AI. in my opinion. Now, I don't see that when I get it in lower ISOs, like nice bright days, stuff like that. It's really only at the high ISOs. But that is, to me, is a huge flaw in Topaz Photo AI. Now, I told you earlier I would talk about what my flow is as far as Lightroom Classic and Topaz Photo AI. As you can see from these demonstrations, I only use Photo AI in certain situations where I have a face that I'm trying to recover. It's not quite tack sharp. So this is my general flow between Lightroom Classic and Topaz Photo AI. First of all, I like to cull in Photo Mechanic. So I'll take a 3,000 images from a game, cull them down to say, I don't know, 1,500 or so. Those all go into Lightroom. And then as I go through it, I have a series of images. You know, I'm shooting 15, 20 frames a second, so I'm going to have a lot of images. Pick the one I think is the best. So if it's nice and tack sharp, I would just use the denoise function that's already built into Lightroom Classic. Comes out pretty darn good. Now, if that doesn't work, say the face is just slightly out of focus, just not quite as sharp as I would like it to be, the sharpening function in Lightroom Classic isn't going to fix that problem. I've tried, it's not going to happen. So then, and only then, will I take it into Photo AI. I will take it as a TIFF, not as the raw file, but as a TIFF. And when it gets over there, I will not let it do its thing. I will babysit that image all the way through and make adjustments all the way through. You cannot rely on Photo AI to make good decisions. The AI is not that intelligent. So with that, that is how I edit my sports images. I've tried a lot of variations, but this is the variation that I have right now that seems to be working. But if you have a different variation that I'm using, I'm happy to hear about it. All right, that's how I use Lightroom Classic and Topaz Photo AI. Is it perfect product? No. Is it worth buying? Yeah, I use it all the time, but very specific cases. And if you're interested in actually purchasing it, I'd love for you to use my affiliate link that's down below. I get a small percentage of that when you do buy a Topaz product. But once again, do not buy Denoise, Sharpen, or Gigapixel. If you're going to buy one of their products, I would definitely go with the Photo AI. Just remember, when you're using it, you got to babysit it. All right, until next time, check out this video and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you later.